Hi, my name is Jeff Wilson, and I'm here to tell you a story about this airplane. This is a 1929 Pete and Pole air camper. We affectionately call it Petey. Petey, piloted by Brian Kissinger, is going to experience a magical day of flying from sunrise to sunset. He's going to travel all across the country and meet people from all walks of life with many, many stories to tell. This is not just a story about aviation, but a story about the can-do spirit, about not waiting.
Fly now, Brian, and the concept is really a timeless one. I'm just one of the creators of this concept, but it's all about the moment. Auf Deutsch in German, it would be Liebe den Moment, live the moment or enjoy the moment. And that's really what we have. Yesterday is already gone, tomorrow might not come. Not being morbid, but that's just what it is. And we got to enjoy the now. It might be getting your license or working towards it, or working towards building an airplane. All we have is the now, so fly now and enjoy it.
The first big air show of the season is Sun and Fun in Lakeland, Florida. There we met the Nadeau family and young Paul Jr., who aspires to be a fighter pilot.
The thing I love about flying is the overall rush that you get in any planes that you fly, and coming to air shows, seeing all the planes flying around, the F-18s, Blue Angels, things that I love the most.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him flying something in the very near future. Yeah, he's pretty much dedicated to doing that.
Love these air shows, so we haven't been down to this one before, so this is pretty impressive.
Right. So what's your favorite airplane? Do you have one?
The old Warbirds would have to be like a Corsair.
Show him your tattoo.
They have a tattoo of a Corsair, yeah. The civilian planes, I love seaplanes. That's my next I'd like to get my rating, yeah.
Rex Gray, B-17 pilot of the EAA aluminum overcast, had a tragic story to tell of a young pilot during World War II.
Lieutenant Laird Hendricks.
Lieutenant Laird Hendricks.
And he was from Ocala, Florida.
Okay.
And for some reason, I don't know exactly why, I guess because I can relate to being 25 and during that time of war, I was in the Navy and as an air crewman, but I can kind of relate to some of his experience.
Right.
And he was from Ocala, Florida. He went to West Point, graduated from West Point, got into flight training, and finished flight training. Flight training runs about 2 years.
Sure.
So, and I'm just kind of piecing together history. So he's probably 18 when he got out of high school. West Point, he's 21, 22. 2 years of flight school, he's 24. Okay.
Right.
From Ocala, Florida, he's probably been maybe around the U.S. doing his flight training, no doubt. Okay, and West Point. And then he volunteers for England.
Okay.
And he goes to England July 25th, 1941. Okay. Remember, Pearl Harbor was in December
right?
that year.
Right.
So we're not in the war, But what do we do when we're not in wars? What do we usually do? We send equipment, right?
Right.
And when we send equipment, then what do we send? Advisors.
Right.
Okay. So that's what Lieutenant Hendricks, he went to Polbrook, England. They had a B-17Cs over there. They had 20 of them in a squadron that the Brits had bought from the Americans.
Okay.
We're not in the war yet. So he goes over there, he's 25, he gets there on a Friday. The B-17C was the latest model of the airplane, the most modern model. It went from a 750 horsepower to a 1,000 horsepower engine. I'm suspecting Lieutenant Hendricks had probably about 200 to 250 hours of flight time. Maybe he never had even flown a 17C, but he'd flown, no doubt, flown a 17.
Sure.
You know, so they go over there. He gets there on Friday. He gets to Pulbrook, England, on Sunday, and on Monday he has his first flight. And has an advisor, and it's some sort of test flight. It's not a mission. It's some sort of test flight, and for some unknown reason, the airplane comes falling out of the sky from a high altitude, sheds a wing, and the whole crew dies. All the Brits, 9 Brits, and Lieutenant Hendricks. You know, and he's the first supposedly fatality from Florida during the war. But the really fact of the matter was, he wasn't even in the war.
Right.
He was an advisor, non-combat loss. You know, and I guess the point is, we lost a third of these airplanes and crews in non-combat related accidents.
Training missions, military missions, things like that.
And the results are the same whether you're in combat or non-combat if you have a loss.
You're dead, you're dead.
Yeah, your
plane's gone.
So anyway, that story about Lieutenant Hendricks just seems, you know, kind of sad and tragic, you know. 25, not a whole lot of experience, goes over there and flies one trip.
Right.
Ends, you know.
That's right.
Anyway, that was my latest Florida War story.
Dale, where are you and what are you doing?
I'm at Sun and Fun, just daydreaming.
What are you dreaming about here?
What it'd be like to have a new ultralight instead of 3 used ones.
From large to small, there were hundreds of airplanes to see at Sun and Fun and plenty of stories to hear.
I'm Kim Cush. I'm from South Dakota, and I'm a serial airplane builder.
Like this one from Kim Cush, who retold this story from the meeting he had with Experimental Aircraft Association founder Paul Poberezny.
Paul said there's a modification for the cockpit. It stretches it out for larger people, and he got me all interested in it. And I was really trying to pry the information out of him, and he was, well, so what is it, Paul? Come on, you know, how do they do it? He says it's called a diet.
All right.
Why do you fly?
Why do I fly? Because it makes me feel great.
Okay.
That's the
I
only
love
reason.
it. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are some of the feelings that you feel when you're up in the sky, John?
Oh, like we're above the planet.
Okay.
We've left the planet, and all these little people are down there on the planet.
Like you're immortal, huh?
That's right. That's exactly the feeling we get.
Before we leave Sun and Fun, I want to introduce you to Doug Rosenthal, pilot of the Commemorative Air Force Tuskegee P-51. Here's a man that's modest and stands tall in the saddle.
I've been flying for almost 40 years, and it's an incredibly amazing experience, but I think the most amazing thing about flying, and especially this kind of flying, warbird flying and airshow flying, is the passionate people that we run across. You know, people that are in the airshow business and aviation specifically, and especially in the airshow business, are just incredibly passionate ambassadors of aviation, and we're out trying to inspire young people to realize they can do anything that they can set their mind to. Anything is possible. I was a farm kid in Iowa, grew up driving a tractor, watching airplanes fly overhead, but I always had this passion to fly, and if I'd have told my teacher when I was 14 years old that I was going to grow up and fly most of the significant fighters of World War II, that just wasn't a reasonable goal. Nor was it a reasonable goal for a black kid in Detroit, Michigan in 1935 to want to fly and fight for his country. So if you want it bad enough and you can draw a target on the wall, you can do anything. And like the Tuskegee Airmen proved it, I have too. I've been richly blessed to fly some amazing airplanes, and this is one of my favorites right here. Petey's home airport is a friendly small-town grass airfield
and is home to over 40 small planes. Everyone there has the fly now spirit, especially Mick Dickerman.
2 years ago I started having problems with my legs, on my left leg, and as we progressed along I got worse and worse, and then I got into a neurosurgeon, and the neurosurgeon did some work on my back and got me on some heavy drugs, and I spent the last year on Oxycontin and been dying to fly, but they wouldn't let me even get near an airplane. And they did a surgery on my back and found out it wasn't my back, I had a bad hip. So this 5 weeks ago they got in and did me a new hip. And I'm weaning myself off my Oxycontin for the last 2 weeks. And I think I'm good enough today, I'm gonna try to fly.
So nothing's going to hold you back. You're a
unless it don't start or don't want to run. Otherwise we're gonna go up.
We pause now for this message from our sponsor.
Brakes are on, switches off.
Fly. Okay.
All right, brakes holding.
There are lots of opportunities for Petey to meet people and make new friends. This is the spring pancake breakfast at my home base, the Flying Dutchman. Petey attracts a lot of attention wherever he goes, and we've found that folks in the aviation community are among the friendliest. Colonel Bob McDaniel, retired Air Force and retired St. Louis Downtown Airport Director, had this story to tell about his recent new plane purchase.
It was real interesting on the takeoff. I got there right at dawn. We did the paperwork, and there was a National Guard armory on the airport. As I was doing the pre-flight, 2 vans pulled out and parked in the middle of the runway, and about 100 soldiers came out and started doing PT in the middle of the runway. Got ready to leave, climbed in. The seller said, "I'll go walk out and chase them off the runway." I got down to the end of the runway, and they pulled both vans off the side of the runway, maybe 2 feet into the grass, and everybody else just stood there. I waited a while and decided they weren't going anywhere. Remembered that this thing advertises about a 350 to 400 foot ground roll, and I figured they were smart enough if they saw me barreling down on them, they'd get out of the way. So I added power, and by the time I got over them at midfield, I was already passing 400 feet, and they were waving.
Museums are a wonderful place to learn about history. Of course, Petey's interest in history leans heavily toward aviation. So we stopped at the Aviation Museum at Warner Robins Air Force Base in southern Georgia. We also found some great conversation there with one of the docents.
My dad was in World War I was in II, my brother was in Korea, and my son was in Vietnam.
You were getting ready to fly which airplane again? It was a
B-24. I trained as a tail gunner on the B-24.
The Lib is heroine, too, of many a wing and a prayer story. Flak-gutted 24 brings back airmen. The Lib beats off 8 enemy fighters, comes home on 2 engines. To some people, it sounds as if the Liberator comes home itself, while pilot and crew relax and enjoy the ride. To some people, but not to the pilot and crew.
Those officers were young. Well, in fact, we were all young. In fact, I was 19 when I went in. But they were in the early 20s.
Right.
And there was a college just across the line into Oregon, and some of those officers had been dating the girls down there. And so one day we were flying, and he buzzed the town, and it was Boxing Canyon.
Yeah, Boxing Canyon. Yeah.
And he just did get over the trees. I don't know if he had any more power or not, but...
All for trying to impress a girl, huh?
Yeah. Well, we were so low. The people, instead of looking like ants, they looked like people. I stuck my arm out the side, and the wind like to took it off.
Wow.
In the middle of the last century, there were many opportunities in aviation, but they slowly started to disappear, and now there's a shortage of pilots and support personnel. Thankfully, new programs are starting up at colleges and high schools like this one in St. Louis, the Aircraft Maintenance Program at Gateway STEM.
My name's Miranda Ruther, and I'm a senior at Gateway STEM High School, and I'm part of the aviation program.
Gateway STEM is one of only 4 high schools in the country that are certified by the FAA to teach airframe and power plant. We are the only school in the country that are partnered with a college. So the classroom demographic is, I'll have a high school student sitting right next to an adult student. For example, I have one student who's 42 years old and has been 22 years in the Navy, sitting right next to a 15-year-old girl who loves aviation.
My goal is to get my airframe and power plant license through the school and go on and maybe work for jet aviation or Boeing, or go into the Air Force and work on fighter jets and continue my career with that, probably painting or engine repair.
My goal here is to eventually make it to the Boeing facility. Currently, because of this program, I was able to obtain a job in the industry.
Good news for new opportunities. Next, Petey visited an air show performer.
I'm Patrick Mackley from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm an air show pilot. I've always had a passion for flying, and it's been in my blood. My dad introduced it to me when I was 5, and pretty much ever since, it's been airplanes in my family, and I've helped I've helped build 3 with him, and then ended up kind of breaking off to my destiny that I decided when I was 12 I wanted to fly air shows. When I first saw Sean Tucker at Oshkosh, that was a big thing. I want to be, you know, I've started calling myself recently when marketing to people, you always hear in sports and fighting and all that kind of stuff, like, you know, I got an MMA company on the airplane, so I'll pitch that, but one of the biggest things you hear is the people's champion, and I always think of myself as the people's performer.
So what is the Fly Now spirit? It's the determination that drives one to accomplish their goals. In our arena, it means finishing your pilot's license or building that airplane. But it can apply to any goal one may have. Don't give up. Draw your target on the wall and fly now. Brian and Petey are flying home now. They found happiness in this day of flying. But perhaps we shouldn't be so concerned with our pursuit of happiness, but rather with the happiness in the pursuit.
I'm going up in the plane with my husband, Buzz.
Looks pretty scary, doesn't it? No one else will fly with Brian.
I never died, I only flew away. On a pair of magical wings I soar. I am here with you each and every day. Do not cry, or be sad, or worry more. Hear me as the aircraft flies overhead. See me on anything with wings aloft. I am still alive, see, I am not dead. Feel me on your face when the wind blows soft. Dream as if you will be there forever, but know that you too will have to depart. Live each day like it is your last ever. Help others and always give from your heart. Until you arrive with us over here, do not forget I am still with you there. A poem by Brian K. Kissinger.